Way back near the beginning of the Civil War, a man named John Roebling made a bridge across the Ohio River, the longest of its kind at the time. Construction started in 1856 and opened to the public in early 1867. At the time, the bridge was surrounded by apartments and houses. This would remain the case until 1937, when the river flooded 80 feet, completely submerging and destroying homes. There were 385 confirmed deaths over the 3-week-long flood, doing $500 million worth of damage. After that, with most of the homes along the bank rendered uninhabitable, everything left standing was torn down and replaced with warehouses and parking lots. Later, in 1970, Riverfront Stadium was constructed right at the foot of the bridge and served as a home for both the Cincinnati Bengals and the Reds. Then, in 1997, the river flooded again. It wasn't quite as bad as the flood of '37, and not nearly as deadly, only killing 8 people in Cincinnati, but it was enough to wash away infrastructure and leave most of the banks utterly useless. The stadium, at this point renamed Synergy Field, was left standing like an island among the floodwaters. Until in 2002, it was demolished by a, frankly quite impressive, controlled explosion to make room for the new home for the Reds, Great American Ballpark. After that, not much happened on the banks of the Ohio. Parking lots and empty space sat between the two stadiums, at least until Smale. In 2006, Phyllis Smale, the wife of P&G chairman John Smale, died after a 1.5-year battle with cancer. Upon her death, John donated $20 million to the city of Cincinnati to build a park on the riverfront in her name and memory. Construction started later in 2008. Then, after John Smale died a few years later in 2011, the name was shortened to just be Smale Riverfront Park. Obviously, with the area's history of horrible floods, anything put there had to have water close in mind. Everything put near the banks of the river was waterproofed, from the swings to the street lamps lighting the paths that wind around the foot of the bridge. The only building on the property, which houses the handmade, hand-painted wooden carousel that cost $5 million of public money to commission, is understandably a good 800 feet away from the coast of the river. That's not all. All the children's play pieces, from the metal flying pig, or oinkothopter as it's called, to the giant foot piano, were all made to be completely waterproof. Of course, keeping the water in mind meant a lot of things were retconned from the original design. The plans originally presented to the city included things like a concrete dock for civilian boats and a garden area as part of the banks that just wouldn't be feasible for a design that had to account for flooding. On February 18, 2018, I went down to visit the park at around 7 a.m. while I waited for the bus to go to work. When I got there, half the green space was completely flooded. A couple geese sat by the new water's edge, enjoying the grass they now had access to. This was just the beginning of one of the worst floods since 1997, and the water would only get higher over the next week or so. Unbeknownst to me, 4 days later, an NKU student by the name of Nick Montag had the brilliant idea of swimming through the floodwaters of Smale Park. According to him, he did it because
the fans, they just needed a little something, a little pick-me-up, and I was like, you know what? Wait a second. That guy can be me.
Then, another 4 days later, an anonymous man was spotted wakeboarding down the completely submerged old Broadway. I'm guessing this is what people mean when they mention the downtown culture. Now, it's the beginning of March. The water's subsided quite a bit, and now you can walk the shores of the river without being washed away. Of course, it's still the Ohio, so there are plenty of geese. I tried to get a statement, but they weren't very cooperative. Even in the middle of the day, people are here taking breaks from work downtown, using the track to run around and just relax. The park is a beautiful, scenic reminder that no matter how tall the floodwaters get, nothing can beat the spirit of Cincinnati.